All right. Let's finish this. All right. Part 2, Living the Dream. Chapter 1. Good enough to dream. You must have dreams and goals if you are ever going to achieve anything in this world. Lou Holtz. Be the Dream. John Chaney. On the evening of October 4th, 1989, I couldn't get the grin off my face. I was in Chicago, my father's hometown, sitting in a box seat at the baseball park he loved. It was a rare and wondrous event for 3 reasons. First, the Cubs were in the playoffs. Second, this was the first ever postseason night game at Wrigley Field. The atmosphere was as electric as the wattage that illuminated the diamond, the outfield grass, the stands, and the ivy-covered wall. On that mild evening, with a hint of fall in the air, the old ballpark took on a magical glow. But for me, the real magic was listening to the pre-game introduction. I'll never forget the inner pleasure I felt when the public address announcer's metallic voice crackled over the speakers. Batting fifth, the left fielder, Dwight Smith. As I sat there, beaming, my mind flashed to a day 4 years earlier. It all came back to me. The 4 walls, the funky furnishings, the single overhead bulb, as dim as Wrigley Klieg's lights were bright. I was back where the story begins, Mesa, Arizona. Room 106 of an economy motel. Every major league team can judge a prospect's tools, and there are 5 in baseball. The ability to hit with power, run, catch, and throw. But how do you measure what's inside an athlete's head and heart? As the Cubs' new counselor, my job at spring training in 1985 was to interview about 30 of the club's young prospects. At our motel, I would telephone each one and ask him to come up to my room. They walked in, tentatively, one at a time, every 30 minutes. Barrio kids, inner city kids, country boys, California surfers, youth on parade. Seated on a bed, I introduced myself with a smile and offered the chair across from me. Tell me, I asked for 4 openers, where do you see yourself in 3 or 4 years? Now, that's the unusual timetable for a baseball player to make it to the major leagues. Some kids shrugged. They didn't see past tomorrow. Some hadn't thought that far ahead. Most didn't have a clear definition of where they wanted to be or what they wanted to do. Asked what motivated him, one young player said, candidly, the Ford factory in Toledo. He knew he didn't want to be punching a time card there. Then Dwight Smith strolled in. I can't remember for sure what he was wearing. T-shirt and shorts, I think. But I'll never forget his smile. Smitty's face lit up the room. When I asked Dwight his vision for the future, the young man, who wasn't a high-round draft choice, didn't hesitate. Mac, I see myself in Wrigley Field, hitting .300, he said. The kid from rural South Carolina pictured himself starting in the outfield. He even saw and heard himself singing the national anthem. Without prompting, Smitty suddenly broke into a Luther Vandross song. He had a good voice, and he knew it. Dwight Smith saw his tomorrow in vivid color. As I listened, my skin broke out in goosebumps. I was struck by his confidence and moved by the power of his dream. In 1989, Smitty made it to the big leagues. He celebrated his 26th birthday that year by finishing second to his Cubs roommate, Jerome Walton, as National League Rookie of the Year. Dwight was the only player nominated on all 24 ballots. He later sang the Star-Spangled Banner at Wrigley Field and at other major league parks as well. He ended his career in Atlanta, where he sang the national anthem before a Braves playoff game and earned a World Series ring. The idea for this book came to me that day. During the flight, I began putting down on paper what I had learned about the psychology of achievement and the psychology of success. Some people, I learned, are PSO, positive sensory oriented. Others are negative sensory oriented. Positive sensory oriented people, like Dwight Smith, have a very vivid imagination and sensory rich dream. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream." He didn't say, "I have a good idea." Wade Boggs, at age 6, knew he someday would play in the major leagues. Johnny Bench's second grade teacher asked her students what they wanted to be when they grew up. Bench said he wanted to be a baseball player. His classmates laughed. In the 8th grade, he was asked the same question. I said, "A ball player," and they laughed a little more. Bench recalls, by the 11th grade, no one was laughing. Michael Jordan said, "I think people like Julius Erving, Denzel Washington, Spike Lee, and Martin Luther King, people I admire, all created their own vision, and they didn't let anyone or anything distract them or break them down. It is this extraordinary people live. It is said that extraordinary people live their lives backwards. That they create a future and then they live into it. An exercise I teach is called ACT backwards. I want you to try it. The A stands for accept your present state. Understand your strengths and weaknesses, as we discussed in the last section. C stands for create your desired state. Dwight Smith had a dream. What's your dream? Close your eyes and see yourself exactly the way you want to be. Write down what this desired state would look like. T stands for take action steps to get there. Success is a journey of one step at a time, and the longest journey begins with the first step. Chapter 2. Progress, not perfection. I'm a firm believer in goal setting, step by step. I can't see any other way of accomplishing anything. Michael Jordan. It's all about the journey, not the outcome. Carl Lewis. 2 university researchers spent years studying thousands of peak performers in industries of all kinds, including sports. What Edwin Locke and Gray Latham discovered is that people who succeed are goal-oriented. They have a vision. They create sensory-rich dreams like those illustrated in the last section. Then, they turn that vision into action through goal setting. Goal setting is a master skill for personal growth and peak performance. I can't stress this too much. Without goals, where will you go in life? If you don't know where you are headed, you are probably going to wind up somewhere other than where you want to be. Dick Hanula, one of the most successful high school swimming coaches in the country, said, motivation depends in a very large part on goal setting. The coach must have goals, the team must have goals, each individual swimmer must have goals. Real, vivid, living goals. Goals keep everyone on target. Goal setting is a way of bringing the future into the present so you can take action now. Goals improve performance. Goals improve the quality of practices. They clarify expectations and help increase self-confidence by seeing yourself get better. As the swimming coach points out, goals also increase the motivation to achieve. Let's look at some basic principles of goal setting. First, you should develop performance goals as well as outcome goals. A performance goal, or action goal, is something you can control. If you play baseball and you want to hit a .300, then you are going to have to take a certain number of pitches in batting practice. I ask major league hitters to concentrate on having 4 quality at-bats each game. That becomes their goal rather than I'm going to get 2 hits every game. Focusing on quality at-bats is an action goal. The outcome will take care of itself. Goals should be challenging but realistic. Setting goals for your game is an art. Golfer Greg Norman said, "The trick is in setting them at the right level, neither too low nor too high. A good goal should be lofty enough to inspire hard work, yet realistic enough to provide solid hope of attainment." Dick Canula put it this way: goals must be high enough to excite you, yet not so high that you can't vividly imagine them. Goals must be attainable, but just out of reach for now. An acronym for setting goals is SMART. The S stands for specifics. Say what you want to make the Little League. Say you want to make the Little League or high school team as a third baseman. A specific goal would be to work on your fielding skills. M is for measurable. Every day, I'm going to take 100 ground balls to my left. The A stands for achievable. The goal is reachable and within your control. R is for realistic. It's believable. T stands for time bound. There's an accomplishment date. A goal is a dream with a timeline. Every goal needs a target date for completion. I encourage athletes to set daily or short-term goals. The way to achieve long-term goals is to break them down into small steps. Effective goal setting is like a staircase. Each step is an action step. An increment of progress. The old saying is, inch by inch, it's a cinch. One day, I received a telephone call from the general manager of an NFL team. With concern in his voice, he said the club's young quarterback, a first-round draft pick, wasn't sleeping well. At night, he began drinking alcohol to keep himself asleep, which one only creates another problem. So, I met with the player and the team executive, and we agreed to work together for a specific period of time. I was establishing a goal right there. At our first session, the player was very open with me. He talked about his 5-year contract and the size of his salary. The club expected him to take over the offense and lead his teammates to the playoffs. Management, coaches, and fans were counting on him. The responsibility he felt was overwhelming. The rookie had the gotta. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. He was thinking about accomplishing everything at once. He worried about the future, which he had no control over. Together, we devised a 5-year roadmap and marked it with a series of small but significant steps for him to follow. We set short-term goals, specific goals, SMART goals. After our meeting, the rookie seemed like a different person. He felt empowered. He had a can-do action plan and therefore felt more in control. 2 of our greatest fears are the fear of being out of control and the fear of the unknown. Setting and attaining small goals provided the player with positive feedback and the motivation to get better. As he improvised, his confidence grew. As he improved, his confidence grew. When he still was in Class A ball, a young Diamondbacks pitcher called my 1-800 hotline. He was in a panic. When I asked his problem, the major league prospect said he had started the season strong, winning 4 of 5 games. Since he had lost 3 in a row. He sounded more than disappointed. The kid had never had a losing record in his life. and now he was questioning his future in professional baseball. I began to quiz him. What was his earned run average during the three losses compared with the start of the season? His ERA was lower, he said. How about your first pitches? He said he was throwing more strikes. I told him that despite what he thought, he was improving. The outcome just weren't going his way. I helped him understand that he has no control over his record. What he can control is his ERA, his walks per strikeout ratio, and his hits allowed per inning. He didn't have to be perfect. See progress, not perfection, I told him. What do you want to accomplish in sports? The magic begins when you set goals. What are your goals? Make a list, write them down. This is the first step to putting your dreams into action and turning them into reality. Chapter 3. Don't shirk the work. Talent is never enough. With few exceptions, the best players are the hardest workers. Magic Johnson. The harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. Vince Lombardi. For 6 years, I spent my summers in the mountains of Flagstaff Training Camp, home of the NFL Cardinals. At 7,000 feet, breathing in the clean, pine-scented air, players began the task of preparing themselves physically and mentally for the grind of the upcoming season. Under the bright July sun, rookies hoping to make the team and veterans battling to keep their jobs ran sprints or gassers. They put on pads and banged heads in practice twice a day. We all want to win. Every athlete wants to succeed. But the ones who do are those who separate wanting from being willing to make the sacrifice that winning demands. After the first few days of practice, at high altitude, I could look into players' eyes, observe their body language, and tell which ones were determined to pay the price to make their dreams come true. One of those players was Ricky Proehl. I met Ricky in 1990 after his senior season at Wake Forest. He attended the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. At the Combine, hundreds of pro prospects are interviewed, weighed, measured, timed, examined, and evaluated in advance of the league's spring draft. As the Cardinals team counselor, I interviewed dozens of players. I liked Ricky Proehl immediately. This cocky wideout from New Jersey didn't fit the NFL prototype. Most scouts thought he was undersized and probably not fast enough to compete against the pro game's hiccup-quick cornerbacks and safeties. But I liked his attitude, and I admired his confidence. Proehl had led Wake Forest in receiving 3 years in a row. He set the school record for career receptions. He saw himself playing in the NFL, just as young Dwight Smith saw himself wearing a Cubs uniform in Wrigley Field. Other prospects who had competed against Proehl in the Atlantic Coast Conference offered testimonials to his work ethic. Ricky Proehl? Yeah, he comes at you, play after play. He runs perfect routes. The guy's a fighter. He never quits. I hoped the Cardinals would draft him, and they did in the 3rd round. 10 years later, late in the 4th quarter of the NFC Championship game, the St. Louis Rams broke from the huddle. They trailed Tampa Bay 6-5, a baseball score. Less than 5 minutes remained. Kurt Warner, the Rams quarterback, called the play. Flex left, smoke right, 585 H choice. At the snap, the team's 4th receiver took off down the left sideline. He looked up into the dome lights, eyes widening. Here it came, a tight spiral. The receiver fended off a defender with his right arm and caught the ball with his left. Touchdown. That 30-yard catch won the game, and sent the Rams to the Super Bowl and put number 87, Ricky Prowl, on the cover of Sports Illustrated. This is what I dreamed about playing in the NFL for 10 years, Prowl said that day. The kid from Wake Forest, traded by the Cardinals to a losing team in Seattle, and then to a bad team in Chicago, and later to a 4-12 team in St. Louis, took the lap around the Trans World Dome, clutching the George Hall's NFC Championship trophy. Lars Anders at the University of Florida, writing in a paper on deliberate practice, said he found it takes 10 years of practice to acquire the mastery of an expert. Ricky Prowl has been catching footballs for a long time, but it took him 10 years of hard work to become an overnight success. In sports, as in life, there's no substitute for commitment. Vince Lombardi called it heart power. A man can be as great as he wants to be. The Hall of Fame coach said, if you believe in yourself and have the courage, the determination and dedication, the competitive drive, and if you're willing to sacrifice the little things in life and pay the price for the things that are worthwhile, it can be done. Once a man has made a commitment, he puts the greatest strength in the world behind him. It's something we call heart power. Once a man has made this commitment, nothing will stop him short of success. Listen to Tony Gwynn, one of baseball's best hitters. It's easy to cheat yourself and do just enough to get by. But that's what everybody can do. Just enough to get by. But those who want to be successful and maintain that level of success have got to push a little bit harder and do a little bit more. Rod Carey says he has seen many baseball players blessed with God-given ability who simply didn't want to work. They are soon gone, Carey says. I've seen others with no ability to speak of who stayed in the big leagues for 14 or 15 years. You have to want to do the work. Andre Agassi fell from the top of the tennis world to number 141 in the rankings. Determined to resurrect his career, he committed to the belief that if he worked himself into top physical shape, no one could beat him. You have to work hard and establish yourself all over again, or else it's real easy to have a bad day, Agassi said. Watching him during his inspiring comeback, you could see Agassi was willing to stay out on the court for as long as he had to beat his chief rival, Pete Sampras. Rob Evans transformed the Ole Miss basketball program into a powerhouse. This is what Evans, now a head coach at Arizona State, tells his players. Hey, you might not be as good as Michael Jordan, but there isn't any reason you can't play with as much effort and enthusiasm as he does. No matter where you are talent-wise, you always can play hard. How about you? Have you made the commitment to this book? Reading the lessons for enjoyment is fine, but results come only after you cross the line and say you're going to answer the questions and do the exercises. Mental skills, like physical skills, only improve if you do the work. One of my favorite quotes is from former tennis great Bjorn Borg. I remember how I used to take the train to Stockholm every day after school to play, coming home, studying, getting up to go to school, getting on the train again. All those years, it has gotten results. But even if it hadn't, even if I wasn't able to become a champion, I would still know that I gave it my best shot. I tried. I got on the train, and I tried. Have you boarded the train? Are you on track? If not, what are you waiting for?